Dear all students in the class CMB 558 as an information security, let's go with each other today with the chapter 3, which is user authentication. We will see with each other what's meant by user authentication. But you have to know that we have what we call user authentication and the message authentication. And this chapter is related to user authentication. For this chapter, in most computer security contexts, user authentication is the fundamental building block and the primary line of defense. It means that the user authentication is the primary line of defense. Defense against what? Against the attacker from outside, against the unauthorized user from outside. User authentication is the basis for most type of access control and for user accountability. It means that we will use the user authentication for controlling access of our system or our information we have. Let's go here. When we go with the user authentication, we will see that it should be also defined from the standard as request for comment, RFC 2828. RFC 2828 defined user authentication as the process of verifying an identity claimed by or for a system entity. It means that we would like to exchange identity. This is what's meant by authentication. Okay, then when we go with the authentication process, then the process of authentication, we have what we call a fundamental building block and the primary line of defense. The authentication is the fundamental building block and the primary line of defense against unauthorized user from outside. And also, this is the basis for access control and user accountability. This is used for control access. Access for what? For the system, for the application, for the whatever information you have. To have the process of the authentication, we have what we call identification setup and verification setup. For the identification setup, it means presenting an identifier to the security system. Then presenting an identifier to the security system. And the verification steps, which is presenting or generating authentication information that incorporate the binding between the entity and the identifier. Okay, then when you go here for the user authentication, we have a different way of authentication. We have a different way of user authentication. When we come here, we have 4 means of authenticating user identity are based on. We have 4 means of authenticating user identity. Be careful here. We have 4 means. The first one, what we call something the individual knows. The second one, something the individual possesses. The third one, something the individual is. Something the individual is, which is static biometric. The fourth one, which is something the individual does, which is dynamic biometric. Then again, we have 4 means of user authentication or user identity, which is something the individual knows. Here, which is password, PIN number, answer to prearranged questions. Or you familiar when you go with the identify yourself or build your profile, they ask you question like what is your high school name, what is your mid name of your wife, what is the name of your pets, whatever is. This is what's meant by pre-arranged question, and password and PIN number. The second mean of user authentication, which is something an individual possess, which is what you carry as a token, what you carry as a card, which you have smart card, electronic key card, or physical key. In different way, what the individual possess. The third way, which is something the individual is, it means that your fingerprint, your retina, your face, something the individual is, what you is. Your fingerprint is yours, your retina is yours, your face is yours. Something the individual does, which is dynamic biometric, which is your voice pattern, you does your voice pattern, your handwriting. It means that you write, you talk, or you speak. You can make you this one as a user authentication. Let's start one by one here for each means for authentication. If you go here, which is the first one, which if you go back, which is something the individual know. Here, the password. The password is something the individual know. Widely used line of defense against intruders. User provides username and password. System compare password with the one stored for that specific login. It means that the password, it's a widely used line of defense. Then you are familiar that when you access any application, you have to introduce your username and password. Then the user ID determined that the user is authorized to access the system. Then when you have your ID, whatever it is, then you are authorized to access the system. Determine the user privilege. User privilege here, how far you can access different type of application with the system. How far you can access the software, or you can have ability to do whatever, change, delete, read, write, or whatever it is used in dictionary access control. Yes, they have a dictionary of the password. You will see later that this password should be stored in a dictionary, and this should be encrypted for a security reason. Then here, this is the first one, which is coming from something the individual know, which is the password, and then continue with the something the individual possess, which is the token, which is coming here as let's go with each other here, which is here. This is the different kind of type of card used as a token. When you go with the type of card used as a token, it means that you have old credit card, you have a bank card, you have prepaid phone card, you have a biometric ID card, all of these different cards used. When you go here, this is memory card, one of the card used, which is memory card. Can store but don't process data. The most common is the magnetic strip card. Then this is a memory card here as an example, which is the magnetic strip card. When you go here as a smart card here, it means another type of the card, which is the physical characteristic include an embedded microprocessor. Smart token that looks like a bank card, can look like calculator, keys, small portable object. Then the first card, which is memory card, which is magnetic strip card. The second one, which is smart card, which is the physical used for access or authentication here also. Then let's go here, which is the second or the different mean of authentication, which is coming as a biometric authentication. Then we talk about If you go back again, which is here, then we go with the different mean, which is something the individual know, which is the password as an example, which is coming here, and then something the individual possess, which is the token, different type of card, which is coming here as a different type of card you have, as a memory card, as a smart card, and we will go with each other here with the third type or the third mean of authentication, which is coming here under something the individual is, which is the fingerprint retina, which we call this is the static biometric. If you go with the static biometric, then you go here, biometric authentication. Then when you talk about biometric authentication, it means attempt to authenticate an individual based on unique physical characteristic. Unique physical characteristic related to the user based on pattern recognition. It is technically complex and expensive when compared to password or token card. Then, if we look at the biometric authentication as a physical characteristic used, which is include facial characteristic, fingerprint, hand geometry, retinal pattern, signature, and voice. It means that we deal with the static biometric authentication, again, which is the physical characteristic used, facial characteristic, fingerprint, hand geometry, retinal pattern, signature, and voice. Let's go here. When we go with the remote user authentication, we said that this is the most important part for the authentication if you are employee working outside. If you are user access the computer system from outside, then we talk this is remote user authentication. It means that authentication over a network, the internet, or a communication link is more complex. When you talk about network or internet or communication link, internet is an open system right now. Then the security of the internet is the most critical part in the area right now. Then we have additional security threats such as eavesdropping, capturing a password, applying an authentication sequence that has been observed. This is different type of attack. Generally rely on some form of challenge response protocol to counter threats over the network. Like I told you at the beginning, we are looking for securing our network. We would like to secure the layering system of the communication. Then we talk about the third layer security, which is IPsec, which is layer 3 IB security, and layer 4, which is secure circuit layer transport layer security, and some of the application of the application security, which is security of the email. We would like to secure my multi-purpose internet mail extension, which is the email for multimedia. Then there is many applications secured right now, like securing your credit card over the internet. This is what we call remote user authentication. You have to authenticate yourself before you go with the system as a remote user authentication. Thank you.